Okay, good morning to everybody, and I'm very, very happy to be here. First of all, I would like to thank, of course, Rod Robinson and the CEN Technical Committee for inviting me to do this presentation. I think it's a very timely presentation because the Commission has been proposing a new set of legislation proposal in April 2022, and we are very near to the completion now of this process. So some of those proposals, which will certainly go through, will have an impact, especially on emission monitoring also. And I think it's important and timely to do that. So thanks again for inviting me, and it's a great opportunity. Okay, so just to start, again, my name is Eric Harris. I work in the European Integrated Pollution and Prevention Control Bureau. This is a bureau who is writing the bad conclusion. I will explain that to you as we go along. What is I want to talk about to you today? Just to explain what is the current Industrial Emission Directive, which is the main tool to regulate the industrial installation in Europe. Then explain to you the process that we use here in Sevilla, in the Joint Research Center where I am working, to actually define the environmental norms. How do we do it? How do we write the brief documents? How do we define the bad conclusion? I will explain all those terms in the next slides. Then I will give you an update about the Commission proposal, which we call the IED, Industrial Emission Directive 2.0, so the new Industrial Emission Directive, and what are the key proposals which are included there. And finally, give you a state of play of where we are. We are very near to completion, as I said, just to let you know where we are. Okay? Okay, so the Industrial Emission Directive is the main tool, as indicated for Europe to regulate the agro-industrial installation. There are about 52,000 installations, and you can see on this left on side some of the key sectors which are covered. So, for example, the energy industries, large combustion plant, for example. You have also the metals processing, of course, iron and steel production, ferrous metal processing, the downstream process, the foundries, for example, the chemical industry, the production of large volume inorganic chemicals, large volume organic chemicals, waste industry, waste treatment, waste incineration, the pulp and paper, another energy-intensive sector, slaughterhouses, and finally the intensive rearing of pigs and poultry. As you can see, out of the 50,000, 20,000 are actually farms which are pigs and poultry. So that's important. So this Industrial Emission Directive was actually started in 2010. So it has been operating for the past 13 years. And as you can see on this graph on the right, it has been quite efficient, especially at reducing air emissions. You can see that there is a sharp decline here on many important pollutants. SOx, for example, NOx, non-methane VOCs, about 40 to 75% reduction. So the legislation which were passed on all the sectors, cumulative, has been efficient. It has worked well. But still, there is still a lot to do. I mean, as you can see, more than 50% of emission of SO2 in Europe are still originated from those sectors, and we need to do more. Okay? So just to explain to you now how we process the legislation. It's a bit of a unique process. I know that there are speakers from around the world here, and the way we write the legislation, environmental legislation here in Europe is very special, and I want to explain that to you. This is quite important, and it's also unique in the Commission. The bad conclusions are written in a participatory process via a technical working group, which basically writes the document. We write the document in a consultative process. It's very unique. This is done in what is called an information exchange, where we try to establish the best available techniques, which are documented in this document, the best available technique reference document. So that's a large document that you may have seen. They are available on our website, for example, and that's it. So what do we try to do is to identify the best available technique to reduce, for example, emissions to air, emissions to water, but also resource efficiency, energy consumption, water consumption. It's an integrated approach. We not only look at air emissions, but all environmental issues. And we try to define what is called the BAT IEPL. Sorry for the abbreviation, but I will talk about it, so I need to explain that to you, which is the best available technique associated emission performance level. You have two types. The first type is performance level in terms of resource efficiency, so for example, the energy consumption and water consumption. That we call that a BAT IEPL, performance level. And then we have a subset, which is the BAT IEL, associated emission levels. Those are emission limit values for air emissions or water emissions. So just to distinguish, we define BAT IEPLs and BAT IEL. And that is written into what is called the BAT conclusions, which is a small chapter of the brief. Okay, how the BAT conclusions are used? Once they are published, they are the reference to set the permit conditions. So all the plants in Europe, installations, which are operating for the sectors, operate with a permit. This permit needs to take the decision which are in the BAT conclusion, essentially as a reference point. For new installations, so if a new installation comes online, they need to apply the BAT conclusion straight away. For existing installations, they have 4 years to comply after the publication of the BAT conclusions. Very importantly, each permit of installation needs to have an emission limit value. The emission limit value needs to be set in the range of the BAT IEL. A BAT IEL has got a range, so emission limit, let's say for dust emission, iron and steel plant will emit between 2 and 5 milligrams per cubic meter. The competent authority has the choice to set the emission limit value at 2, 3, 4, 5, as they wish, depending on the situation of the plant and the techniques that they may apply. Very important, and this is also a link with actually the emission monitoring group of Rod Robinson here. It's about the monitoring conditions. The BAT conclusion specifies some monitoring conditions. So how the pollutants that are emitted are actually monitored. It is recommended in the BAT conclusion systematically to use the appropriate SEN standard. But sometimes some pollutants do not have a SEN standard. So this is the reason why we have a collaboration going with the SEN and try to push forward a number of standards, in fact, to advance. So here is a process that we follow to establish those documents. So the first thing we do is we assemble what is called a technical working group. So let's imagine that we revise the non-ferrous metal industry sector. So we will call industry representative for this sector. We will call environmental NGOs, for example, the European Environmental Bureau. We will call representative of the EU member states, so that's people who are involved, the competent authorities who are writing the permits, for example, and of course us, so the European Commission, the Bureau, and people from DG Environment, which are in charge of implementation of the directive. We do a kick-off meeting. In the first meeting, we decide what are the key environmental issues, the issues that we really need to tackle in that sector. Based on that, we develop a questionnaire, and this questionnaire is sent to a large number of installations, so it's a data-driven process. And the Bureau, so us, we actually write a first document, which includes a first draft of the BAT conclusion. This is sent to the technical working group, and generally we have a commenting period of 3 to 4 months, and then they send us back some comments. We can have up to 2,000 comments. It's not unusual. So we need to look at all those comments, try to see what makes sense, doesn't make sense, and we come back with a second proposal, going into the final meeting. In fact, in this process, there is only 2 meetings, the kickoff meeting and the final meeting. In the final meeting, everybody is around the table, and we take each subject one per one. It's a huge meeting, it's about 5 days generally, and all the subjects are tackled. And after each subject, we must reach a consensual decision. This is a principle. And we manage to do it in most of the time. It's not easy. It's not easy, I can assure you, but most of the time we have done it. And then after we finalize the document and publish it, and that becomes law. A very important part in our process, and this is, I think, key because people really buy into it, because we actually look at the real performance of installation. So right from the start of the process, we look at real industrial installation. So for example, we just review the foundry brief, and we had more than 150 foundries which provided data on emission, consumption, and so on. And so we develop the questionnaire, we send it out, we collect the data, we analyze, and then we have technical expert group also meetings to look at the data together with the member for the technical working group. And I believe that this is the reason why we managed to get those relatively high quality documents at the end and a good outcome, and especially managed to get to a consensus. This is a key thing. Okay, Sevilla process, I think just to complete, this is the output over the last 10 years, well, 13 years, because the IED started in 2010, the current one. We managed to revise 32 briefs in total. So as you can imagine, it's a huge amount of work. As you can see here, some very important sectors, large combustion plants, large volume inorganic chemical, non-ferrous metal industry, for example. In this large document, you have the bad conclusions. It's a chapter inside. This chapter is extracted, published onto the official journal of the European Union, and then implemented. In total, to do those 32 briefs, we collaborated with about 2,000 experts from various sectors, of course, and our documents are downloaded about 200 times per year, including far away. We have even recently actually done some translations, for example, in Arabic and also Chinese of some of our bad conclusions, because people are interested further afield to actually know more about the conclusion. Okay, so this is working well. The Sevilla process is working well. The way to making the brief is working well. That has been recognized during an evaluation of the Industrial Emission Directive. However, the policy context changed radically in 2019. And I think you all know about this publication of the European Green Deal. So this is a new approach which was set by the Commission, more ambitious approach to reach zero pollution. And you have here the text. The aim is to review measures to address pollution from large industrial installations. And we will need to look at the sectoral scope. Are we covering enough sectors? Is there some sectors that we are not covering? And also look a bit more in detail into climate, energy, and circular economy issues. As I said, the IED has been very efficient for emissions to air and emissions to water, let's say, but for energy and circular aspects, maybe something needs to be done. So there was a clear remit for action. We had to do something, and that led to the start of the revision of the Industrial Emission Directive in 2020, already 2 years ago, almost 3 years ago. And also, we have a kind of sister regulation. We call it the European Pollutant Release and Transfer Register, EPRTR. So this is a regulation where all the industrial installations covered under the IED have to report emissions, about 91 pollutants in total, onto a website, which is the Industrial Emission Portal. And here you can find annually all the emissions. It's a good source of information, all the emissions from the industrial installation. So that also has been revised. And another driver is a methane strategy. There is a commitment from the Commission indicated to reduce by 30% methane emissions. And so there is a need also to maybe tackle some sectors that the IED was not tackling before, to make sure that we reduce basically methane emission further down. Okay, we started, I'm gonna explain a bit more now about this IED evaluation and also the key measures that we now propose. In terms of the evaluation, we started by an evaluation and tried to find out what was working and what was maybe less working. And really, this evaluation, which was quite thorough evaluation, to be fair, 5 issues were identified. The first one was that legislation may not be so efficient. There was some excessive flexibilities, for example, about derogation. A lot of industrial installation applied for derogations, and sometimes the way those derogations were granted in different countries were a bit different. The access of information to the public also was a bit of an issue, and maybe that needed to be improved. The second point was about innovation, promotion of innovation. The BAT process is a good process, but it is fair to say that we are looking backward. So you look at installations which are up and running, let's say technology readiness above 9, which are applying techniques which are well-known, tested, and implemented, for some of them for quite a long time. So this is a technique which really look at that, but nowadays, and as you know, we are going through a very fast industrial transformation. New techniques, new processes are coming in iron and steel, for example. This is a revolution completely, and we need to be able to capture that, okay? And the legislation had to be adapted because of that. So that is a key point in the new proposal. I will document that a bit later. Also, resource efficiency, circular economy, that was a bit of an issue. In most BAT conclusion, we have to say, since probably 2 years, last 2 years, we have started to put BAT IEPL on resource efficiency, on water consumption, for example. But in the brief which were published before 2017, 2015, there was no requirement. It's only indicative. It is not mandatory. The plant do not need to apply it. So it's just indicative, and if you want the legal power, there is no, the industry is not forced to apply it. So let's put it this way. In terms of decarbonization, also there are some a bit of lack of driver. Why? Well, we have to say also that the IED is not regulating CO2 emissions. This is the field of the emission trading scheme, a separate legislation. So CO2 emissions are not covered under the IED. However, other greenhouse gas emissions, for example, the fluorocarbons or methane, are covered under the IED. So we can set, for example, limits for other greenhouse gases, but not for CO2. So that maybe needs to change, but so that was one thing. And finally, the sectoral scope. As you could see, for example, there are some important sectoral sectors which are not covered. For example, the cattle farming is not covered. The industrial emission directive only look, for example, at pigs and poultry. So that is historical. It was decided at the time, but the cattle farming is an important sector and it's not covered, for example. So maybe there is possibility to increase that. So what I'm going to do now, I've got about 5 or 6 slides, and I will try to go to address those 5 issues and try to give you, in fact, the main ideas, proposals that have been put forward. First of all, put some measures to reduce flexibilities. Industry, when can apply for derogation, for example, when for a specific BAT-IEL, they can demonstrate that they cannot apply, they cannot reach this BAT-IEL and apply for derogation, but they need to justify this. But in this process, in the previous IED, there was no timeline. So if you apply for derogation, you have your derogation, great. But this derogation, well, we don't really know when it stops. So that is very important, and it is indicated now, proposed that every 4 years, this derogation will be reviewed. And it needs to be duly justified, whether you need to carry on or you need to do something else. Okay, that is the first important point. Also, there was a lot of discrepancy between member states. Some member states, I have to say, were maybe more, gave the derogation in an easier way maybe than others, and so that was a bit affecting the level playing field. There was no methodology. There is actually no methodology that is used, a common methodology to assess the environmental benefits against the cost, and that is very important to make sure that, well, you know, you get your derogation for a good reason. So that is very important, and it has been also proposed. The third point, and that I think is very important for this group in particular, is where the emission limit value will be set in the future. Right now, as I indicated, a BAT IEL range has got the lower end and the higher end. So dust emission, let's say, from 2 to 5. In 80% of the cases, the competent authority in Europe are setting the limit value at 5, so at the higher end. The Commission is now proposing that as a starting point, this emission limit value shall be set at 2, at the lower point. And then a discussion will start between the plant operator and the competent authority to see if they cannot reach these 2, to see where we can set the BAT IEL up to 5, depending on the techniques that they may apply. So as you can imagine, this has got a lot of implications in terms of emission monitoring, but also, also for us, lots of implications for the Sevilla process, because when we write the BAT conclusion, we're going to need to make sure that when we set a lower end of the range at 2, we need to make sure that there are some techniques, yes, we need to make sure that there are some techniques which can actually achieve that level. Okay, enhancing enforcement, some installation may be suspended, and also better public access to information that is important. Okay, I go a bit faster because I think I'm talking a lot, okay. The second is supporting innovation. This is very important. So, for installation which will adopt emerging techniques, they will have a longer period to implement. So 24 months. Before it was 9 months. So they will have 24 months to implement this. And they will have also, instead of 4 years, 6 years after publication of the BAT conclusion to reach what is called now the B8 emerging technique associated emission level. So there will be a set of emission limits specific for those emerging techniques, and those plants will have a longer duration to achieve them. Okay, because there may be process, it takes time to set it up. We are also going to establish an innovation center, INSIGHT, Innovation Center for Industrial Transformation and Emissions, where we will try to identify emerging techniques, look at their readiness level and environmental performance, and transfer this information, this kind of front-loading work, to the BREF process to develop the BREF. Okay. Also, industrial transformation, very important. All installation will have to declare a transformation plan. Transformation plan means that they need to declare how they will achieve, for example, decarbonization by 2030 or by 2050, which measure or which processes they are going to implement to do this. That will be binding. Okay, I pass this one. Some important measure also about a non-toxic and resource efficiency circular economy. There will be now, if it's accepted, of course, it's still a proposal, a binding performance level for resource efficiency. So, water consumption, recycling of materials, BAT IEPL will become binding. So, people will have to comply with. If it's not possible in some cases to put BAT IEPL which are binding, there will be benchmark levels. So, for example, different production processes is so different that you cannot put a kind of BAT IEPL and cannot achieve, then you would define benchmark instead. There will be a new element in the environmental management system, resource efficiency plan, a chemical management plan, and also better reporting under EPRTR. To support decarbonization, about energy efficiency, there will be, it is proposed also to have binding energy efficiency requirements. So that's quite important. And I think I can pass because I need to go faster. I really want to talk about this one. This one is an important, is the scope extensions. A number of additional sectors will be covered. First of all, cattle farming. It is proposed that cattle farming will be covered for installation above 150 livestock units. It's a specific unit for the number of animals and so on. And also lower the threshold a bit for poultry and pig. So that is a big change. Those installations are responsible for a lot of ammonia and methane emissions, so a big impact is expected. There are some loopholes also. For example, the forging presses are not covered under the IED. It's in the metal processing part that is proposed to be included now. Another big change is the mining activities, but the non-coal or energy mining, so metal or industrial minerals. Those should be covered. They are responsible approximately for 4.5% of the total dust emission in Europe. So a big improvement, if they come under the IED, will be expected on the front of dust emissions. Very important, the landfills. The landfills are a great source of methane emission as well. And they are covered under the landfill directive, but that is the old directive from 1999. And it is now proposed that they would come under the IED, bad conclusions will be written, and certainly we expect to have a big impact there as well. Finally, the last point is the large-scale battery production. We have new plants coming in Europe to basically fabricate the batteries that we need in our electric cars. We have a plant, for example, in North Sweden, a couple of plants already in France coming up. And so those batteries will be covered under the Industrial Emission Directive also. And we expect some issues maybe about water consumption, especially in those plants. We don't know yet. We will find out when we start looking at those sectors, in fact. Okay. My final slide. Sorry to have extended a bit the time. About the co-decision process. So where are we? This proposal was published in April 2022. So that's already 1 year, more or less, a bit more. And it went through two legislative bodies in the Commission, so the European Council and the European Parliament. Both of them gave their opinion, some conflicting opinions sometimes, but they gave their opinion. It's available online. I don't have time to explain all the issues there, but I invite you to go and have a look and see. What is happening now, and it's starting, it's already starting in September, is what is called the trilogues. So the Commission who made the proposal, the Council and the Parliament have representatives around the table, and then start to find a solution, try to find, again, a consensus about what will be the final text. And we are expecting this final text at the end of this year, or in January 2034. Thank you, and sorry I had to go a bit faster, but it was a pleasure to give this talk. Thank you very much.